Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Australia's Most Haunted, the much anticipated one I cannot wait to share with you guys today. A quick disclaimer before we begin that this video is definitely not suitable for children and may contain some disturbing content. So if you need to sit this one out, please ensure that you do, and I'm sure I'll catch you in the next video. Bye! The content in this video has been sourced from all over the web and wrapped up into one cheeky little video that I'm going to share with you guys this evening. And just remember to remain kind and respectful in the comments below, and just be a decent human being in general. Okay, so if you're ready to kick this one off, let's get to it. So for us locals here in Coburg, Pentridge has become somewhat desensitized to the majority of us because we've got our specialty Richies there, we've actually got a cinema, and there's of course our favourite tarot latte cafe, which is the Glass Den. So to us, Pentridge is a part of our community, it is a part of our history, it is a part of our everyday lives, and it actually does feel somewhat like home in a weird sort of interesting way. It's sentimental. In 1851, Her Majesty's Pentridge Prison was constructed. In 1924, the old Melbourne jail closed down. All prisoners were relocated out to Pentridge Prison, Coburg. That didn't just include the living prisoners though. You have to remember that there were also prisoners buried there at the old Melbourne jail that had been executed. All remains were exhumed and relocated out to Pentridge. They were basically dumped in an undignified pile, mass grave at the back of D Division. And that's where our story begins today. These prisoners were under maximum security and kept in the harshest of conditions. D Division was known as one of the toughest areas of Pentridge Prison. It housed that of violent offenders serving long sentences, the likes of Chopper Read, Jean Lee, Eddie Leonsky, and Ronald Ryan. Included in the remains that were relocated out to Pentridge were none other than infamous bushranger Ned Kelly's. In 1997, Pentridge Prison closed. Redevelopment works started out at Pentridge between 2014 and 2016. With a history spanning over 171 years, heavy in nature, it is any wonder that when construction workers working on the redevelopments at Pentridge, staff of the cafes at Pentridge, and even residents of the new apartments at Pentridge begun reporting eerie happenings. No one at all was surprised. A response would generally be given in a manner of which the respondee was essentially expecting somebody to report creepy happenings. And a lot of the time they may have asked, "Did you see Chop too?" So back in August, I eagerly attended one of the Lantern Ghost tours at D Division. The ghost tour runs through D Division for approximately 90 minutes or so. The tour consists of really in-depth historical information as well as information delving into some of those creepy instances and unexplained happenings around the site there at Pentridge. So all of your ghost sightings, your cold chills, anything paranormal that you could possibly think of. So the tour is a fantastic balance of both historical information and also a paranormal type ghost tour as well. Reasonably priced. The tour guides are really interactive, really easy to follow. But the best part about the tour is you actually get a period of free time after the tours concluded the informative and paranormal sort of storytelling. If you don't experience something physically in the flesh on the ghost tour, take photos. Just ensure that you are still taking photos. If you don't feel anything, you don't see anything, you don't, sense anything, you need to take photos. Because what you're going to get on your camera when you get home and you review your content, you review your footage, you analyze your photos, I absolutely guarantee you, you will not have come home empty-handed. That prison And that ghost tour does not disappoint. So I'd been anticipating going on this ghost tour at Pentridge Prison ever since they had actually started running these ghost tours, but then of course we had COVID and all sorts of fun things that really got in the way of being able to actually go and do any of this fun investigating and exploring. But finally in August this year I attended that ghost tour, and I'm telling you now, it is absolutely next level. So not only is the information extremely informative, it is absolutely imperative that you are listening to your tour guide, because some of the instances that you may experience at Pentridge are in line with the history itself. It is a place full of energy. It is residual. There is tension there. There are restless spirits, and people are constantly in and out of that building, and they are wanting to interact with us. It is as simple as that. It is residual energy wanting to interact with us. Now, one of the most interesting things about going on this ghost tour is that on previous ghost tours that I've been on, Ararat, Walhalla, Pentridge Ghost Tour, was that I usually work myself up a little bit and am a little bit spooked from the get-go with ghost tours. And I don't know whether it was the fact that it is so familiar to me. I'm so desensitized to Pentridge because it's a stone's throw from home. It's somewhere where we frequent regularly, but I wasn't at all nervous or spooked or worked up about going on this actual ghost tour. I was so excited. I just could not wait to get in there and just start filming. And I'm telling you now, keep your camera on for as much of the tour as you possibly can. Obviously, be mindful of who you're recording. Like, I mean, I wouldn't go posting any videos of maybe the tour guide doing their, their spiel and everything like that. Like, make sure you remain respectful, but at the same time, I would absolutely have your camera rolling. You don't want to miss a damn thing. So while we're on the ghost tour, completely immersed in the history and the information being provided by the Lens Ghost Tour guide, in line with obviously the paranormal aspect of everything. And that would usually be the point that I would start to get, I don't know, freaked out, spooked, chills up my spine, something like that. Nothing at all. I could not believe that I went into somewhere that had so much happen within its walls and holding so much emotion, and being an empath myself, not to feel anything. It felt almost familiar, which is a little bit freaky, but whatever. So the first instance that I actually had on the ghost tour, I had two. So these are two that I had in the flesh on the ghost tour. The other instances are from analysing content post-tour. So the first instance that I had when we're on the ghost tour is we went out into like the exercise yard, and I got this really, really sharp pain at the base of my skull, top of my spine, sort of neck area, and it was just excruciating. And you just assume that you've maybe like cricked your neck funny. I mean, there was a really annoying person on the tour that was like blind and just taking the piss out of everything. Like, I mean, you can do that, but like, don't ruin everyone else's time. So I did kind of do like a face at them. Maybe I strained my neck. Karma. But that's what I thought sort of had occurred. But the whole time we're in the exercise yard, this pain in the back of my neck, base of like my head, spine area, really, really hurting. And I was like, oh my God, this is awful. And then I was like, I'm gonna go back inside and just sort of, get some space from everybody, because it was really sore. And at this point, I'd totally forgotten that, I definitely sort of sense sorts of energies and feelings and everything, because I just wasn't feeling anything. I wasn't even thinking it. So I go in and I'm like, oh, okay, that headache's kind of gone. That's so strange. And then I look up. That's exactly why my head was hurting. I looked up at the beam, and the beam actually had like a recreated noose hanging from it. It was one of the gallows. So an interesting occurrence when I'm thinking that nothing is going on, I'm not feeling anything, I'm just having a wow of a time. But you do want to get a little bit scared, right? You're on a ghost tour. I do a spooky channel. I wouldn't mind a bit of creeps happening. I'll deal with the rest later. But yeah, that was just a beam with a rope, recreated gallows, back of the neck. I don't know. I don't know much about hangings. I don't really want to go Googling nooses and everything like that. But if that's anything to do with like snapping the neck when you go down, perhaps that's what it was. So the second instance that occurred on the ghost tour itself was when we were standing on the second tier of D Division, the prison. So everything down the middle is completely open and it's just cells on either side and a railing. So you can actually see everywhere, full observation, everything. So we're standing on the second tier and we're hovered around the gallows, so facing the rear of D Division. Now, everybody was like looking at the gallows, talking. I was making sure that I was keeping my camera rolling, taking plenty of photos, and then something out the corner of my eye to the black left-hand corner, all the way at the end of D Division, the very, very back cell, I saw a shadow poking in and out.
Like the dark environment. Because you had nothing on you that was the other way. Never worked. So 11 people around here. The beam is not original to those hangings that we've done.
These are just two of the instances of seeing creepy dark shadows at Pentridge Prison. Upon, of course, reviewing content following the actual conclusion of the tour, there was definitely a lot more to be seen. Those videos are still to come, so stay tuned. Now I suppose it's time to introduce to you the restless souls of Pentridge Prison. There's a handful of well-known spirits that have been caught on camera or people have directly had contact with upon some of the ghost tours at Pentridge. Our first spirit that I'm going to introduce to you is none other than the Brownout Strangler, Eddie Leonsky. Eddie Leonsky was an American GI over in Australia with the American troops in World War I to protect Australia from Japan. Now, the Australians weren't really that fond of having the American troops here, as our troops were overseas fighting to protect our country and our allies. The American soldiers were underworked, overpaid, oversupplied with booze, over here taking all of the Aussie women, and the Australians weren't overly fond of that. Eddie Leonsky was known to be somewhat of a social outcast. He was quite reserved and quiet until, of course, he had a drink or two in him. Eddie Leonsky was known to binge at bars and get quite rowdy. But when Eddie drank. He partied, and he partied hard. He became a completely different person. His confidence would be oozing. A little bit of Dutch courage never hurt anybody. The troops would get him drunk enough, and when he would have had enough to drink, he would begin to perform and sing for the troops. The troops described his voice as having the voice of an angel, It was like this angelic tone that just radiated from within him, and he could just sing these beautiful, beautiful tunes, for a man at least, and he sounded somewhat, I guess, like a woman. Now, there were a few instances where Eddie had actually gone back to camp, woken up his tent mate, and said, "I've done something wrong, I've done it again, someone needs to stop me." Now, the tent mates, his troops, they never understood what Eddie was talking about. They just said, "Eddie, you were just drunk last night, nothing happened, don't worry about it." And this was the response Eddie received every time he confronted one of his fellow troops about the nights before happening. But oh dear, Mr. Eddie Leonsky indeed had done something very, very bad. You see, when he would be singing his angelic tunes, a woman would take a liking to Eddie, and he would whisk her away into the night. But she would never be seen again, for she was completely unaware that her Mr. was in fact the brownout strangler. Eddie was obsessed with the sound of a woman's voice. He had an unhealthy relationship with his mother, in which she used to sing to him until he was quite of an older age. He missed his mother so back in America, and so a way for him to feel closer to her is to listen to these women. But listening to them and being with them was not enough for Mr. Eddie Leonsky. Oh no. Eddie wanted to possess their voice. He wanted to possess the most angelic voice, so that when he sung to his fellow comrades at the bar, he had the most angelic voice of all. So what Eddie would do is, as they would disappear into the night, Eddie and his young lass, he would strangle his victims, lean right down to their lips, and suck up their last breath, in the belief that Eddie would be actually sucking in their voice, and he would then hold this incredible voice. But of course Eddie was caught and he was shipped off to Pentridge, and thank God for that. Because a modern day Ursula is something that nobody wants to be dealing with. Eddie was reported to be a troublesome prisoner. He was quite needy and had to be protected quite a bit by the guards. He also had a fascination with satanic rituals and Satanism. Eddie Leonsky literally drew a pentagram on his cell floor. Now, this has been restored in more modern day times so that it is more visible. However, the initial carving and drawing of this pentagram in Eddie Leonsky's cell, which is cell 52 of Pentridge Prison in the D Division, which you will see on the ghost tour, he actually drew the original. Now, it is said that if you go into Eddie Leonsky's cell and you hum a little tune or belt out even your best ballad, that you will feel Eddie over your shoulder, hands cold wrapped around your throat, and somebody sucking in your breath. But we tried it on the night and nothing at all happened. I actually sat in the middle of the pentagram and just did a little hum, and my friend that I was with at the time was singing Vanessa Amorosi, Shine. I'm not sure what was with that song choice. I still find that hilarious, but nothing seemed to happen. So perhaps we didn't have good vocals for Eddie. And you know what? That's fine, because I don't feel like being soul-sucked by an Ursula. But that was the story of Eddie Leonsky. Now, the next spirit that we're going to get to know a little better is none other than the infamous Mark Chopper Reed. Now, if you are Australian, you will absolutely know who Chopper is. Uncle Chop Chop, head of Pentridge, chopped his ears off, stabbed fucking Neville Bartell. You know, Uncle Chop. How the fuck are ya? Chopper has been reported to be standing out the front of his cell. He just standing, observing and watching the prison and simply walking straight back into his cell. People have reported hearing Chopper yell, "Get the fuck out!" or "Boss!" on occasion on the ghost tours at Pentridge Prison. People have reported a domineering and intimidating presence in the free time walking around Pentridge Prison in Chopper's cell. People have reported to smell cigarette. People have captured Chopper on camera. So one day I hope that when I go back to Pentridge that I get a bit of action from Uncle Chop Chop, because I can't say that I got anything last time we were at Pentridge, unfortunately. Now, the ghost tour that I would have loved to have been a part of was the ghost tour where Chopper actually shouted, "Get the fuck out!" This was in 2014. An entire tour group heard, "Get the fuck out!" It sounded so realistic, so lifelike, and so present that the tour guide actually called the police to come and search the building from top to bottom. Of course, they found nobody, and it was later described that male, domineering and intimidating voice screaming for everybody to get the fuck out was in fact that of Chopper Read. That is incredible. Now, Chopper's cell was number 16 of D Division at Pentridge Prison. Chopper's cell had to be positioned all the way to the very back of the prison building, and there was actually another section of iron bars that separated Chopper's end cell from the rest of D Division. He was that notorious at getting to his enemies in prison. Pentridge did not want to give him any opportunity to cause anyone any ruckus or any bother. It could be that in those darkened corners around cell 16, that Chopper actually in fact may have found his home. In an interview, walking Chopper through D Division following its closure in 1997, he spoke to one of the reporters, admitting that he was feeling somewhat homesick for the place. And the reporter described it as if Chopper was returning to his school. So we've got some imagery and some footage of Chopper's cell and the segregated section of D Division that separated Chopper's cell from the rest of the D Division prison. Now, bars weren't really going to stop Chopper from getting to his enemies. He would get to them no matter what. However, this was Chopper's home. As you can see, it's quite dark, it's dingy, it's at the very, very rear of the D Division building. And I just think it's funny that everything on the left-hand side of this prison seems to be heightened with activity. Really, really interesting. I wonder if it's because the left side of the prison actually backs onto where the mass grave from Melbourne jail was dumped. I don't know. There could be a link there. Who knows? So as you can see here, we've got Chopper's cell, and we're just doing a bit of a walk through. There's not really too much activity going on. More than anything, I'm just having a bit of fun. And I mean, I know it's wrong that we sort of glorify criminals, but Chopper's infamous, you know, bit nostalgic, so we had a bit of a chat with him. And finally, a chilling video I took while we were exploring around the gallows at Pentridge. Now, this one is a little trickier to explain. There are 3 individuals that were definitely not on our ghost tour at the time. Given their positioning and given where the rest of the group is, and I remember making sure that I knew where everybody was at all times. Like I said, we had some people who were on the tour that were blind, and they were just really annoying. By blind, I mean drunk. So what we've got here is 3 circled figures of people that were not on our ghost tour. There was nobody else left in Pentridge. The wine cellar owners had left. I'll leave you with this unexplainable image. Until next time, my fellow creeps.